Okay, greetings friends. Good morning from Turkey, as you know. As is the case every time we're talking about languages, okay? This is a series on the intro to linguistics, alright? Just like the basics of some of the major fields, okay? We talked about syntax, okay? Basically constituent order, head marking, noun phrase, verb phrase, stuff like that. We talked about morphology, okay? What's a phoneme, what's a morpheme, how is it represented? One thing I kind of missed in that video was talking about phonological alterations, which can distinguish between a free morpheme and a bound morpheme. Right? I also didn't really talk about what a clitic is, but those are good topics to look at because it is interesting. Additionally, I talked about phonetics, okay, just like a description of the speech sounds, how they're made in the mouth, and the speech tract. I also talked about phonology. Did I talk about phonology? I think I talked about phonology. How like basically how sounds change based on the sound environments and like phonological rules, which are, distinct to a number of languages. Although there are some things common in all languages, such as devoicing and like vowel shifting and stuff. Okay, this video now. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there, and I'm gonna say those things are the basics. All right, those things describe the mechanics of a language. How do you, like, what does your mouth do to make the words? How do those sounds interact with each other? And then how are those sounds formed into morphemes? And how are those morphemes, like, ordered in a sentence? You know what I mean? Or in utterance. So those things are, like, the foundational basics, okay? And anything you really do in linguistics, in my opinion, from this perspective, needs to, it's hard to say, because you've got these things, right? I'm gonna call them the basics, but then you also have areas like neurolinguistics and psycholinguistics, and there's also social linguistics, which kind of is in the mix. Now this video is about social linguistics, but before I get into that, I want to kind of give you an overview of all these major fields of linguistics and what their foundations are and how they interact with each other. So what I just described, I want to call the basics: syntax, morphology, phonetics, phonology. Those things are describing the language itself, and they're kind of removed. Well, I would argue they are removed from the people and the culture where this is used, okay? But these things can't be ignored. So on the one side you have pure language, like I'll say grammar, right? Grammar to incorporate those things. And on the other side you have pure culture, which really doesn't look like a language, and those are the things that anthropologists deal with. So you have linguistics, which is very broad. I will say grammar, and you also have anthropology, which basically just deals with culture and how people interact. And obviously language has to be a part of this because it's how people communicate with each other. Okay, and so we have grammar, we have, culture, we also have neuro and psycholinguistics. So the neurolinguistic guys look at the brain, and they want to know, like, what is the brain doing when people speak of language? For me, like, I'm not very interested in amino acids and synapses and milliseconds. And this is really what the neuro guys do. It's more of from like a biological medical approach, but it also obviously incorporates linguistics and what your brain is doing when you're speaking or learning a language. This is great, and this is, for many people it's very interesting and fascinating. For me, it's really not, so I don't really focus on that. Yeah, and that's like in neurology. Psycholinguistics is kind of like anthropology, how, people deal with each other, how language is used, and then you can even get into like English and like rhetoric and stuff like that. So as you can see, like all these fields are really, they overlap, you know what I mean? And the term linguistics is used very broadly. In my interest, like I'm interested in basically the mechanics of a language and also the culture to some extent, with a focus on like minority languages, and which is a great segue into the social linguistics video that I'm going to have to make next because I just talked for 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Okay, so this video is basically an overview of linguistics fields. Okay, that's the topic. Okay, bye bye.